You kill my mother, that's not gonna solve your problems. It'll only make them worse, I promise that.
I want all the smoke.
Understanding the timeline that connects both Force and Ghost really is important, especially as this is now an extended power universe where anything can happen at the drop of a dime, just like we saw during the ending of Ghost Season 3. The deeper the series gets, the more complex it can become, especially due to the gap between Ghost and Force, and who knows whether they have plans to introduce another spin-off within the similar timeline. Now, the timeline and evidence that I will be going through will provide us with an insight into where we stand with Power Book 4 Force at this moment in time. It's also here to understand what position we're in potentially for the next crossover, and it may not be what you think. So stick with this video till the end to get a full breakdown of the timeline, and also because I'm about to blow your minds with a crossover theory that involves this particular character who recently met his fate. I've also asked Mr. Joseph Sikora himself on the timeline, because as I always mention in my videos, we go on the evidence, facts, and findings. So he's told me from his understanding, this particular event where we saw Tommy coming back to New York in Ghost Season 3 will coincide with the third season of Power Book 4 Force. So that means Tommy hasn't been back to New York, not yet, and that's from Joseph Sikora's understanding. So this is one of the many reasons why my particular theory around Cooper Saxe could be how they implement a crossover in Force Season 2, because correct me if I'm wrong, at this moment in time in the Force timeline, Cooper Saxe is still alive. Now, if you do want to skip to that theory, then just tap the video and you will be able to forward to that chapter. But in the first part of this video, we're going to piece the puzzle together from Season 6 of Power to Power Book 4 Force Season 2. Season 1 of Ghost picked up 72 hours after the events of Power, so we were immediately thrown into the characters and what they were going through in real time. Tariq had just started studying at Stansfield while hustling to pay for Davis, who was trying to get Tasha off a Queenpin charge.
Man who killed James St. Patrick is Tommy Egan.
This wasn't just a moment which cemented Tommy's return in episode 10. It also hinted at the potential for characters of Ghost and Force to cross paths in the future. This added depth, intrigue, and unpredictability within the Power universe. Now, after Ghost Season 1, the St. Patricks and Tommy pretty much left on bad terms, with Tommy faking his death but still out to get Tasha. She was also moved into WITSEC after a cleverly orchestrated plan from Tariq St. Patrick. Tommy then left to begin his journey in Chicago in Force Season 1, but Force Season 1 didn't air until after Ghost Season 2 was finished. However, they did establish the timeline at the end of Force Season 1 by bringing it back to New York.
I heard Cooper fucking Saxe handed you your ass in court.
In Season 1 Episode 10 of Force, they crossed over back to New York where we saw Jenny Sullivan in a conversation with Agent Medina. This particular scene established Jenny Sullivan just lost the Tariq St. Patrick case, which was at the end of Ghost Season 2. Agent Medina then told Blanca Rodriguez he needs her in New York, even though she wanted to investigate the mayhem in Chicago. We then actually saw another season of Ghost with Season 3 before Season 2 of Force, with Tommy returning towards the end in both Episode 9 and 10. Now, why it's important that we discuss both of his appearances in Season 3 of Ghost is because he must have stayed over in New York. He came face to face with Tasha late at night, and then the following day he was still in New York, where he stopped Tariq from hunting down Monet Tejada. Tommy then had a few words with Tariq and then went back to Chicago. Force Season 2 picks up 2 days after the events of Season 1, with Tommy still mourning Liliana's death. Now, what I just went through with Tommy going back to New York and being there with the following day, as well as Liliana mentioning it's only been 2 days since her death, Tommy's been in mourning. He hasn't been back to New York yet for that particular occurrence in Ghost Season 3. It's only been 2 days since Force Season 1 and Force Season 2, and it's impossible for him to have taken that 10.5-hour trip to New York, had words with Tasha, come face to face with Tariq the following day, and then come back. So the events we saw in Ghost Season 3 hasn't taken place yet in the Force timeline. As Joseph Sikora said from his understanding, that will take place in Force Season 3. So the quotes from Joseph Sikora and Liliana saying it's only been 2 days since her death gives us enough to piece the puzzle together. Tommy hasn't been back to New York, not yet, and that's something that will coincide with Season 3 of Force. Now, where does it leave us with the next crossover between the two shows, considering Tommy hasn't been back to New York yet? I think one of the hardest things to do in the Power universe is predicting what happens. It's always fun creating theories with you guys because, as I always mention at the beginning of many of my videos, we go on the evidence, facts, and findings, hence why I asked the question around the timeline. So with that being said, at this moment in time, I don't think we're going to see a crossover with either Tariq or Tasha in Chicago, but with law enforcement, it could very well be different, although they don't seem to be interested. Chicago made the call to the New York offices, and they didn't believe them. They think it's impossible for Tommy to be alive.
Yo.
Freak, the boys buy our little plan. I'd hate to have pulled out my back molars for nothing.
Yeah, they bought it.
Tommy pulled out his back molars and left them in Kate's stolen BMW, which went up in flames. So to New York, Tommy is dead. Or maybe not. Just hear me out. Now here's where it gets slightly interesting and where we move on to the theory element of the video. If the events in Ghost Season 3 haven't taken place yet, then guess who's still alive at this moment in time? Cooper Saxe. And who saw Tommy Egan go up in flames at the end of Ghost Season 1? Cooper Saxe. Saxe has been in a cat and mouse game with the St. Patrick's and Tommy Egan for the best part of 9 seasons of Power. Every season it was the same outcome, until he got to the point where he actually joined Tariq St. Patrick, but this never quite sat well with him. He was always conflicted when trying to defend Tariq St. Patrick or even help Lorenzo Tejada, especially because he knew they were criminals. He knew who Tariq's father was, who his uncle Tommy was, and what they'd done. He also knew what Tariq had done in the past, but Cooper Saxe ended up being on the wrong side of the law. That's how I put it both in Seasons 2 and Season 3 of Ghost. He was definitely conflicted, and hence why he was happy to help Jenny Sullivan, even to the point where he was risking his law license for justice. Now the man we're talking about also asked Andre Coleman to plant evidence on Ghost because he wanted to convict him that bad. That's who we're dealing with. Now at this moment in time in Force, the New York offices don't believe Tommy Egan is alive, but we're seeing everything from Chicago's perspective. But what if they spiked Cooper Saxe's intrigue if he somehow found out Tommy Egan was roaming the streets of Chicago? So I go back to Saxe seeing him being burned to death. There's also these pictures that were taken in Season 1 of Force, and who knows what Saxe's shady character was up to. Just have a look at what he did by delivering letters to 2-Bit and Monet where he leaked Tasha's location from beyond his grave. So can we really put anything past Cooper Saxe? Saxe was that character who was always chasing justice, and if he ever found out Tommy was alive, then he would definitely jump at the chance to try and bring him down. He's someone who I think is going to have a long-lasting impact from beyond his grave. His presence will be felt in more ways than one, which brings me onto this flash drive he left for Junior Valdez.
It's from that lawyer Cooper Saxe.
I always did question Saxe left letters for everyone, but he left Junior Valdez a flash drive. So what information did he leave Junior? This is why I thought it was a whole lot of evidence of maybe recorded conversations, investigations that he'd been conducting himself, or even that Tommy's alive. Could Saxe have potentially found out Tommy Egan was alive, and just before he could act on the information, he was killed, but put a contingency plan in place where everything he was collecting went to Junior Valdez? Now I also want to show you guys this. A picture uploaded by Brian Keyes, who plays Agent Vargas on Force, and in the far left, we have Shane Johnson, who plays Cooper Saxe, along with a few cast members from Force. Now this picture may not mean much. A lot of the Power cast do hang out with each other, and they are very good friends off the screen. The Power universe really is like a family, but I did think it might just be worth mentioning because of this theory around Cooper Saxe still being alive in the current timeline of Force.
You're not stupid, Cooper. Misguided and working for the wrong team, but you know, not stupid.
Cooper Saxe certainly was a lot of things, but stupid wasn't one of them. As I've mentioned before, I would love to have seen the look on Cooper Saxe's face had he found out Tommy was alive, especially because of his history with Tommy and also because he saw him being burned to death. So now the timeline has been established, this could potentially be one way they cross over the two shows once again. With Saxe being alive in the Force timeline, if he had rumors about Tommy Egan being alive, you're telling me Saxe wouldn't have been all over that information. But it also then brings me back to this, what's on the flash drive? Could it be the fact that Tommy Egan killed Angela? Let's not forget, Tommy did admit to putting a bullet in her in front of Saxe. Could it be more evidence on Tariq, more evidence on Tommy which makes him want to avenge his aunt's death? I always thought the easiest way for them to implement a crossover between Force and Ghost is through law enforcement, and who better than Angela Valdez's nephew? But with the events of Season 3 not occurring yet, Saxe is still alive, so could we see something that may start to connect some dots? Could they take us to New York, and could Cooper Saxe still have a part to play in the Power universe? But there we have it, that's the theory based on the current timeline in Force, and with the events of Season 3 not having taken place yet, those particular events will coincide with Season 3 of Force. So what does that mean for a potential crossover in Force? Could we see Saxe having found out Tommy was alive before he met his fate? Is this the information and evidence that he could have left for Junior Valdez before he could act on it? Let me know your thoughts down below on the timeline and whether we could even see Cooper Saxe playing dirty on Power Book 4 Force. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.